The mortuary floor is covered in bloodied shrouds. Survivors, the bereaved, try to console one another, but how? Netanyahu, you're a criminal, rails this woman. May God take revenge on you. Our people are helpless. This is the Indonesian hospital in northern Gaza and the aftermath of yet another deadly Israeli strike. You have nothing to do with any side, says this woman. We don't want this war, but this is what they're doing to us. Just outside, Mahmoud caresses the tiny body of his 2-year-old daughter. She lies amidst a pile of other corpses. Cradling her gently, he takes her to be buried.
What was her crime? What was this little girl's crime? She was only 2 years old. She was so beautiful. And now she's gone. 4 people from our family were martyred. She was playing at the doorstep, knowing nothing. These are Israel's targets. Just women and children.
As they drive off, he reaches out gently to the bodies of other loved ones. So great a loss in just one short moment. Around 100 Palestinians have been killed today, according to local officials. The Israeli army says its strikes have killed 2 more senior Hamas figures. The group had been reasserting its dominance in the territory during the ceasefire period. For the first time since it ended, today Hamas fired several rockets towards Israel, though no damage was reported. In Israel, anti-government protests have continued. Fearful renewed war will threaten the lives of remaining hostages. Angered, Netanyahu plans to sack the head of the intelligence service and possibly the Attorney General as he attempts to concentrate power.
These protesters are gathered here close to Netanyahu's house because they believe his actions are a threat to the lives of the hostages and to the country's democracy.
Shortly after we leave, police attempt to disperse the demonstration using a water cannon. A senior opposition politician is pushed to the ground as he attempts to assist another protester. Criticism of Netanyahu is growing more strident.
Disarmed.
Ami Aylon is a former head of the intelligence service and political opponent.
We have to understand that in order to bring back the hostages, we have to come to an agreement. Second, we are not going to destroy Hamas because we destroyed the military capability of Hamas. Hamas is an ideology. And in order to defeat the ideology of Hamas, we have to present a better, a more powerful ideology for the Palestinians and for us, which is a political horizon.
What do you think really is motivating Netanyahu in resuming the war?
He knows that the alternative, he will be in jail.
In a video posted online, Netanyahu rails against what he terms the leftist deep state, trying to bring him down with legal cases. He insists he will bring the hostages back. Meanwhile, in Gaza, the number of Palestinians being killed continues to rise. Grief and fear, and no one knows when it will end.
Sikandar Kamani reporting. Well, after being rebuked by Number 10 earlier this week for saying that Israel's blocking of aid to Gaza was a breach of international law, Foreign Secretary David Lammy today told the House that he could have been clearer, now saying that Israel's actions in Gaza are a clear risk of breaching international law. Well, earlier he confirmed that a British national had been wounded in a strike in Gaza.
Yesterday morning, a UN compound in Gaza was hit. I can confirm to the House that a British national was amongst the wounded. Our priority is supporting them and their family at this time. Gaza has been the most dangerous place in the world to be an aid worker.
Well, earlier I spoke to American trauma surgeon Feroz Sidwa, who's been working in Gaza as a Med Global volunteer in Khan Yunis. He joined us from the floor of the busy Nasser hospital where he volunteers, and I started by asking him what the situation was like there.
At Nasser Medical Complex, we're coping right now. We had a major mass casualty event on the morning of March 18th. It started about 2:30 in the morning. The door to my living quarters was actually blown open by an explosion. And that's, that wakes you up. And so then we went down to the ER, saw a major mass casualty event that would have overwhelmed any hospital in the United States. Actually, the Palestinians did a very good job with it. They managed it professionally.
And what kind of casualties are you seeing?
I'd say about half were children. Definitely half of the patients I operated on were children. And the 100% of the injuries I saw that night or that morning were shrapnel injuries and blast injuries. Like, just to give you an example of how small but how powerful these things are, we had a 6-year-old boy who had 2 separate holes in the right side of his heart. We were able to get him to the ICU. We were able to fix his heart and get him to the ICU, but he died a few hours later, unfortunately.
You saved his life on the operating table, but then he died later in ICU.
Correct, yeah.
Was that because of certain things lacking in ICU?
Yeah, right now we have surgical supplies that are available, but the ICU care is extremely difficult.
What impact has the blockade of Gaza just in the last 2 weeks, with medical supplies and food supplies not coming in, had on your operations?
It's having a major effect. Number one, everybody had already been malnourished for about 15 or 16 months in this territory. So now, on top of that chronic malnutrition, you're adding acute malnutrition. And so that, if you're malnourished, you're not going to do well with an operation, no matter how well it's done. And then on top of that, there's no clean water because of the electricity blockade. So people were already coming in with gastroenteritis. That's actually been overwhelming the hospital more so than trauma at this hospital in particular. And people are unhoused. Before the breakdown of the ceasefire, the number one cause of injuries that I was seeing were people's homes actually collapsing on them. They had been blown up, 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, but then they went back in, often to retrieve the bodies of loved ones that they knew were buried in there. And then the home is unstable, just structurally unsound, it collapses on them.
Given the fact that the ceasefire, which has now been broken, came into effect at the beginning of the year, and you've had several months of what could be described as a degree of normality, this must be really depressing for you.
There's a limit to what people can take. And they had 15 months of I don't know what word to describe other than hell.
Are people hopeless? Are they deprived of hope?
I wouldn't say it's hopelessness so much as that people are actually starting to turn on each other in ways that they hadn't. And I'll tell you, actually, a Palestinian patient's family member punched me in the face yesterday. He wasn't swinging for me. He was trying to hit another doctor, but just because he was upset about something that was said, or something, just the slightest insult to what we perceive as insult to his dignity.
And just finally, for you as a physician, you're out there risking your life, trying to save their lives. And, the cards are stacked against you in terms of the facilities you have, the medicines you've got access to. And every time you save someone's life, there's a danger that they'll be back in the operating theater or they might get killed. I mean, how helpless, rather than hopeless, how helpless does that make you feel?
None of this needs to be happening. And I think we should just stop making it happen so that hope can be restored. People can go about rebuilding their lives. We don't have to be hopeless. It is a hopeless and helpless situation right now. You're absolutely correct. But it doesn't have to be, and we have the power to change that. We in the U.S. and British people as well.
Yeah. Feroz Sidra, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.